It's 2025, and millions of Americans receiving SSI are still struggling to survive on payments that fall well below the poverty line. Think about that. A program that was designed to protect our most vulnerable citizens has now become a system that leaves many of them in poverty. One of our subscribers asked a powerful question that hits at the heart of this issue. The comment said, "Why no one has changed the SSI program? Marriage and assets? And it's way below poverty in 2025." And honestly, this question deserves to be answered. Why hasn't anyone fixed the Supplemental Security Income Program after all these decades? Why are seniors and people with disabilities still punished for getting married or saving even a small amount of money? In this video, we're going to break down why the SSI program remains outdated, how the marriage and asset rules continue to hurt millions of recipients, and what lawmakers in Washington have, or haven't, done to make this right. We'll also look at the real numbers behind the poverty line and explain what changes advocates are still fighting for in 2025. If you care about SSI reform and want to understand how these outdated rules affect millions of Americans, stay tuned. And before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Social Security Post, where we make complex Social Security and SSI issues clear and easy to understand. When the Supplemental Security Income Program was signed into law back in 1972, the goal was simple: make sure seniors and disabled Americans would never live in extreme poverty. But here we are in 2025, and the program still operates with nearly the same rules from over 50 years ago. That's the problem. The world has changed dramatically. Rent, groceries, and healthcare costs have skyrocketed. But SSI has barely moved. In 2025, the federal benefit rate for SSI is $967 per month for individuals and $1,451 for couples. Compare that to the 2025 federal poverty line, which is roughly $1,255 per month for a single adult, and you see the issue clearly. SSI recipients are automatically kept 23% below the poverty line by design. What's worse is that even though annual cost of living adjustments, known as COLA, increase benefits slightly each year, they can't keep up with actual inflation. For example, the COLA for 2025 was 2.6%, while inflation for basic needs like housing and food rose over 4.1%. So even as a SI goes up a few dollars, real costs rise much faster. This has created a permanent gap between what recipients receive and what they truly need to live decently. The SSI program was meant to provide dignity and security, but the outdated framework has turned it into a survival challenge that Congress continues to ignore. Now, let's talk about one of the cruelest parts of SSI, the marriage penalty. When two SSI recipients fall in love and decide to marry, their combined benefits actually drop. As individuals, they could receive around $967 each, totaling $1,934. But once they marry, they are treated as a couple, and their maximum payment falls to $1,451 per month. That's nearly $483 less just for getting married. The Social Security Administration justifies this by assuming couples share living costs, but in reality, many disabled couples don't. They may each need separate care, equipment, or even different housing setups, which often doubles, not halves, their expenses. This rule forces many people into heartbreaking choices. Across the country, disabled couples live apart or never legally marry just to avoid losing hundreds of dollars in income each month. Advocates call this forced singlehood, a policy that discriminates against people with disabilities who wish to live full lives like anyone else. In a time when equality is celebrated in every other part of society, this one federal program still punishes love and marriage. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have acknowledged this as unfair, but reform has stalled repeatedly due to political gridlock. Until it's fixed, SSI recipients continue to face an impossible choice between love and financial survival. Next, let's talk about the asset limits, one of the most outdated parts of SSI. The rule says you cannot have more than $2,000 in assets if you're single or $3,000 if you're married. These numbers haven't been adjusted since 1989. That's 36 years ago. Imagine trying to live in today's economy under rules written when gas was under $1 and a movie ticket cost $3. This rule punishes saving. If someone tries to keep a small emergency fund, owns a modest life insurance policy, or receives a small gift from family, they risk losing their SSI entirely or getting hit with an overpayment notice. Let's put this in perspective. If asset limits had simply kept pace with inflation, that $2,000 limit from 1989 would be about $5,400 today. But Congress never made that adjustment. The result? Millions of recipients live in constant fear of going over the limit, unable to plan for emergencies or future stability. They can't even have a reliable vehicle or modest savings for medical expenses without risking penalties. This rule traps people in poverty rather than helping them escape it. And while there's broad agreement that the limit is outdated, every effort to raise it has stalled in Congress, leaving SSI recipients with financial handcuffs in 2025. The big question is, why hasn't Congress fixed this? The answer is a mix of politics, priorities, and cost. Updating SSI would require significant federal funding, potentially tens of billions of dollars annually, to raise benefits to the poverty line and modernize asset rules. Lawmakers often talk about fiscal responsibility, but the truth is that SSI serves one of the smallest and most vulnerable populations, about 7.3 million Americans, mostly seniors and people with disabilities. These individuals don't have lobbyists or major campaign donors pushing their cause, so SSI reform rarely becomes a political priority. There have been proposals like the SSI Restoration Act, introduced several times since 2021, that would increase benefits, raise asset limits, and end the marriage penalty. But so far, none have passed beyond committee. Some lawmakers argue that Social Security and Medicare already take a large share of the federal budget, around 37% combined, leaving little room for SSI expansion. Others simply don't understand how devastating these outdated rules are in real life. The end result? Decades of inaction while millions live in poverty under a system that Congress refuses to modernize. Let's step away from policy and look at the human side. The average SSI recipient receives between $683 and $780 a month after small state supplements. Yet, according to Zillow, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the United States is over $1,200 per month in 2025. That means SSI doesn't even cover housing, let alone food, utilities, or transportation. Many recipients rely on food banks, Medicaid, or family members to survive. Some even skip medication or meals just to pay rent. This is not the safety net it was meant to be. It's a poverty trap. These aren't just numbers. These are seniors who worked their entire lives but didn't earn enough credits for full retirement, and disabled Americans who can't hold steady employment through no fault of their own. Despite the COLA increase in 2025, the cost of basic living items like groceries and utilities has risen nearly 5%, widening the gap even further. The result is a daily struggle to make ends meet while Congress debates endlessly. For many, SSI doesn't mean security, it means constant stress and impossible choices. The good news is that advocacy groups and some lawmakers haven't given up. The most prominent proposal, the SSI Restoration Act, would raise the asset limit to $10,000 for individuals and $20,000 for couples, eliminate the marriage penalty, and ensure that SSI payments at least match the federal poverty level. It would also tie asset and benefit limits to annual inflation automatically. so recipients wouldn't have to wait decades for another update. Support for this bill has grown, especially as public awareness spreads through grassroots campaigns and social media. However, the main barrier continues to be cost and political division. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that fully modernizing SSI could cost over $350 billion over 10 years. But advocates argue that this investment would reduce homelessness, hospitalizations, and reliance on other aid programs. In other words, helping people now could save money long term. Reforming SSI is not about handouts. It's about fairness and restoring dignity to millions who've been left behind. Advocates urge everyone watching to call their representatives and demand that this issue be taken seriously in upcoming sessions. Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to our subscriber who asked this question. Thank you for bringing it up. This is exactly why we built this channel, to give a voice to the people the system too often ignores. Millions of you have similar questions and stories about how SSI rules have affected your lives, whether it's the marriage penalty, overpayment fears, or the inability to save even a few $100s. These are real struggles that deserve real reform. So now I want to hear from you. Have you or someone you know lost SSI because of the marriage or asset rules? What changes do you think Congress should make first? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read and respond to as many as I can because your stories matter. And together we can shine light on issues Washington keeps ignoring. For too long, the SSI program has been frozen in time while the cost of living keeps climbing. The system that was supposed to protect our elderly and disabled citizens now punishes them for saving money or getting married. Reform isn't about politics. It's about fairness, dignity, and survival. It's time for lawmakers to finally act. If you believe SSI deserves an update, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Social Security Post. Together, we can make sure your voices are heard loud and clear in Washington. Leave your comments below, and let's keep pushing for the change that millions of Americans desperately need.